Hello, I'm Sophie Jackson from the Treasury Today Group, and I'm so excited to be here at Sibos in Frankfurt for our Navigating the Now roundtable with Bank of America. Over the course of this roundtable, we'll be sharing insights and innovations from this year's gathering in Frankfurt. So I want to kick off with you, Christian. It's great to be here. I can't help but notice a lot of signage around FIFA and your World Cup partnership. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, I think the way how this game translates into our industry is that three things. Number one, it's a global competitive playing field, very aggressively competitive, but fun.
Yeah.
Secondly, it's a sport, as in our industry, you win as a team, you don't win as an individual. Then I think the third aspect is we have a great impact in the communities that we serve and where we are present throughout the world and throughout the game time.
Fantastic. I love how you've connected it to Sibos, which I was wondering how we were going to find that narrative. Your clients are both FIs and non-FIs. As you think about 2025, where so much has happened for all of us, how would you characterize some of your clients' experiences?
I would call it cautiously optimistic, but still working through a lot of uncertainty. And the reason why I'm saying this is compared to 12 months ago, I think some of the uncertainties have stabilized. For example, interest rates have remained higher for longer, but are now gradually coming down. We have had good industry growth, I would say high single teens. And we are investing and we're growing as an industry and as an ecosystem. On the other hand, a lot of uncertainties still persist, right? For example, with the advent of digital currencies, stable coins, which will require a lot more investment, right? Geopolitics continue to be unpredictable. And obviously, the combination of tariffs, inflation, and interest rates continue to be very hard to plan. And that's what the industry is thinking through and working through.
Absolutely. And Matthew, what about when it comes to your corporate clients? Are you facing some of the same experiences there?
Yeah, I would say so. I think you could also describe it as constantly evolving. And so corporate treasurers really have to make sure they are prepared in the right way. And it's often in these types of situations where you get back to basics, making sure you got good visibility and control over cash, you're maximizing liquidity, you are taking a real focus on working capital management. So that is definitely front of mind. We recently actually had our kind of advisory board in New York where we had a group of treasurers for a couple of days talk about what's front of mind for that, and that certainly came through. But there's things that actually moved up in terms of priorities. One is cyber risk and managing cyber risk, and I think that's true of everyone in every
Absolutely.
I think possibly previously for a corporate treasurer, it felt like that was the domain of the IT department. But now it's really everyone's domain, and you're only really as strong as your weakest point. So Treasury's been very involved in managing cyber risk from a Treasury perspective. And then I think the fast pace of change from a technology perspective is very, very much front of mind with Treasury's time. It's typically a very lean organization, and there's a lot of opportunity to drive efficiency, leveraging tools. And we spend a lot of time in this conference and many other conferences talk about AI and the power of AI to help drive efficiency. And they're really trying to work out how do they best deploy it in a way that is succinct, but also really helps. You've got to focus on a process and an outcome. And how can they look at the individual processes and the outcomes they're trying to drive, and how can technology, including AI, help them achieve those objectives?
Excellent. I love what you're saying, because lots of what you were mentioning there was echoed within the best practice that we're celebrating this year, the Adam Smith Award wins, and that collaboration across departments, no longer staying in your lane and being very bold and curious about sides of the business that maybe you were not so involved in before. So thank you for that. Alison, I want to come to you now. As Global Head of Clearing, could you talk about some of the initiatives that you're focused on at Bank of America?
Yeah, well, I would say that coming into Frankfurt, a lot of our key initiatives have been focused on delivering those best-in-class capabilities that can unlock payment experiences for our clients driven by fast, transparent, secure payment capabilities of a global scale. We've also been very focused on unlocking the power of the ISO 20022 investment that we and the industry have been making over the last several years, and moving from a real technology focus to now delivering value-added capabilities, and knowing that things like clean, validated, structured data can really be the key to reducing risk in payments and helping to increase speed as we see the landscape becoming more and more real-time oriented.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's been such a journey to see that dialogue between the clients and the space evolving over the last few years. What are you hoping to get from this year's Sibos?
Well, I think certainly when we think about our payment strategy, it is deeply rooted in the needs of our clients, and I would say what better way to drive that connectivity and collaboration than with the conversations that we have with our clients and partners here in Frankfurt.
Excellent. Christian, I want to come back to you now. The transaction banking and payments industry has certainly been on fire for a number of years in terms of investment dollars. And it doesn't look like that momentum investment is going away anytime soon. Where do you see it being directed? And are there any areas that should be invested in at the moment that aren't?
Look, I think it's a continuation of the investment agenda of the past. Maybe what has differed over time is that more volume, more transaction, more business is concentrated on fewer players, meaning it is a more investment-intensive business overall if you are a global scale player, right? I think there are about 4 areas which continue to attract a lot of attention and investment. Number one, you need to build for scale, resilience, security, and make sure you're safe against cyber, right? So that's the base investment. It's the cost of being in this industry.
Yeah.
Secondly, obviously, the regulatorily required investment continue to be very intense, especially if you're playing on a global scale and have your global clients and you follow them within the 37 markets that we're serving throughout the world, right? And then thirdly comes really customer innovation, topics like real-time payments, instant payments, cross-border, and now, more recently, the advent of digital currencies and digital assets, both on the securities custody but also on the payment side, opens a whole new requirement for investment and how to think about target architecture and target investments. So all of this together makes it a challenging but also a very exciting marketplace to compete in. And it certainly is rewarding for global scale players who can leverage technology on a global field.
Amazing. It's interesting to see some common threads across your business lines there. I want us to move on now to approaches around innovation. So, Matthew, I want to come to you. Many banks say they are innovative, but what do we really mean when we say that? And how does this actually manifest in reality?
So it's interesting because I think different banks, different companies have different approaches to how they think about innovation. We tend to think if you get a bunch of like-minded individuals, put them in a room and tell them to go innovate, they tend to come up with a solution looking for a problem. And we increasingly hear from our clients that they're almost like a fatigue over the last few years where they say, look, yeah, it's all very interesting hearing about these shiny new possibilities further down the line. But actually, if you can't help me with like real world challenges today, then I'm not so interested in hearing the solutions to a problem I don't yet have.
Absolutely.
So we tend to think that the best way to innovate is to drive it from within the organization, and particularly from the people that are closest to our clients. So we provide a framework around innovation, but the idea generation really comes from the teams that are closest to our clients, understanding their operating environments, their challenges, and really ensuring that everything we do is with an eye on ensuring that we're solving a problem. And I think if you use that as your absolute guiding mantra, you're never going to go far wrong.
Absolutely, that really resonates with us. Often when I speak with corporates, there's a lot of the so what factor, I like to call it, where what does this mean for me? How are we going to use this in reality? So thank you for that there. And how do you folks differentiate yourselves? I think it's very hard sometimes to differentiate oneself. So tell me, what makes Bank of America different?
There's so many different ways to differentiate yourself in what could arguably be described as a fairly commoditized environment. I mean, you could say a bank account is a bank account, name it, just name it. But actually, I think there are ways that you can really differentiate. First of all, quality of advice. And this is what we hear time and again from our clients. And particularly when you're in periods of uncertainty or constantly evolving environment, being really close to your client and providing the best advice, I think really differentiates you. Then it's about quality of the service that you provide. And that's another thing that we hear time and time again of how we differentiate ourselves. And, we've been growing the business very steadily for a number of years. And you've really got to make sure that as you grow and scale the business, you do not lose that quality, which is a trap that is very easy to fall into. So we make sure that we keep pace, not only with the innovation and solutions that we're building, but also the quality of service that we're providing to support those solutions. And then finally, it's back to never, well, as I said before, never lose sight of solving a client's need.
Absolutely.
Hold on to that. You're never going to go too far away.
Right, Alison, so over to you on innovation. Do you think that compliance and innovation can ever truly coexist?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, in fact, we've seen that compliance and regulation can be that engine for adoption that's so important for innovative ideas to really take hold in some cases. I think we've seen that the adoption and build out of RTP schemes globally has been a great example of this, where in fact, our investment has been driven by both client need and then also the need to comply in many instances. I think maybe Brazil PIX is a great example of this, where regulator-mandated instant payment scheme has also really transformed the payment landscape locally and delivered a lot of financial inclusion. So a great example of where compliance and innovation can go hand in hand.
Excellent. And in your experience, what's one key ingredient that innovation needs in order to truly succeed?
Oh, wow. Well, there are so many variables, but I think the one that really stands out and comes to mind is collaboration. Innovation is not something that can be done in a silo or as a solo endeavor. I think you need great collaboration, lots of perspectives, and different sets of expertise to really drive it forward. And I think that's been one of the keys to our success as well. And in fact, the ability for us to collaborate across GPS and on the consumer side has really been exciting.
Matthew, I want to come back to you now. With our future focus on, what are some of the things that you think need to happen in order within transaction banking to support the next generation of talent that's coming through?
It's a very interesting one. But first of all, we're a big supporter of the STAR program here at Sibos. It is great to see, and that's really showcasing some of the talent coming through in the industry. But I think, more broadly, there is a little bit of a challenge, particularly on the corporate side of things, in terms of that next generation of talent. The skill set is evolving. I hear a lot of treasurers say, do we hire someone with the finance acumen and teach them technology, or do we hire a technologist and teach them the financial acumen? And there's no easy answers to that. We're starting to see the universities putting those two skill sets together, and some courses now that really address more broadly across finance and technology, which is great to see. But we're also trying to do as much as we can. That we recently hosted an event in London for university students that are in their second or third year at university. And we showcased what a career in Treasury could look like. And we engaged our corporate clients to come and talk about Treasury, to show how exciting it is, how much change is taking place, the skill sets that are required, the pace of change. And a lot of those students left with a much more positive impression of an area of finance that they never really thought anything about. So I think it's really important that we continue to communicate how exciting this space is and what a great career you can build in the payments world.
Fantastic. And then I want to come to all of you with my next question. What do you see coming out of this year's Sibos that will propel the industry forward? And what do you hope to see coming out of it as we look towards 2026? So I'll start with you, Christian.
Look, I would hope for very rapid, accelerated regulatory harmonization between banks and non-banks globally.
Alison?
I think I would say strengthen relationships with our clients and partners across the industry to really laser focus on our priorities for 2026.
Fantastic. And Matthew?
I think I'm going to stick with my talent theme and really about inspiring the next generation of leaders in the payments.
Fantastic. And then final question for you all from this year's Sibos. Who are you all rooting for at next year's World Cup? In the same order.
Brazil.
Gonna go with the host country, USA.
Well, Wales didn't qualify, so I'm going to have to go with it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much to all three of you for a great conversation.
Thank you.